Morning, guys. Welcome back to the series in which I set a timer on my phone for 15 minutes every single morning, except for weekend mornings when my plans are a little bit more complicated and my routine is disrupted. And I talk about whatever is on my mind for 15 minutes. For what purpose? Who knows? For whom? Well, we discussed that in the last episode, so if you don't know already, I guess you're never going to know, or you'll have to go back into the archive. What are we going to talk about today? It's Halloween today. That's why I have the Goosebumps shirt on. It's actually not. It's part of the reason why I have a lot of Goosebumps merch, because I am very grown. I actually have a second YouTube channel, in case you don't know, that's much more successful than this one. I have like 600 subscribers on it. And it's all about middle grade fiction, hence the Animorphs collection and the Goosebumps merchandise that I wear all the time. Books were like super important to me as a kid, and so the books that I enjoyed the most, that I used to fuel my escapist tendencies, really stuck with me. So I still remember them, and I still read them, and I still like to talk about them quite a bit, and I like to wear shirts with Goosebumps iconography on them because I think they're cool. And I think I'm not alone in that. I mean, so many places have the Goosebumps merch these days. Anyway, happy Halloween. We haven't gotten to really wear our Halloween costumes yet, but this morning my wife suggested that we drive to our nearest actual little town in our costumes and meet one of her friends and walk around Main Street with them. So we're probably going to wind up doing that. And that'll be good. What's going on this week? Well, we're officially out of all cannabis products, so it's going to be Sobercello for quite a while because I don't want to spend money and I don't want to have to deal with munchies, and I just don't want to deal with it for a while. We'll see how long it lasts. We'll see if it winds up changing. I'm certainly not going to change my mind about not wanting to spend a big old bulk of money on such a frivolous indulgence anytime soon. So, yeah. What do we want to talk about this morning? It's Tuesday, and yesterday was Monday, obviously. So I kind of had my fresh beginning of the week energy yesterday, and today my routine is super disrupted. Didn't get to go to the gym because on Tuesdays my wife does yoga in the morning, so I have to walk the dog and watch the baby for the time that I usually spend working out. So my routine's all weird. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit lackluster this morning. Kind of need a little more caffeine than I've had so far as well, I think. That's a vice I'm going to have a hard time giving up if we ever get there. But I don't know that we're going to be getting there anytime soon. So what are we thinking right now? We can talk about being a dad and how much that's changed and how my son is going to be a year old in 2 weeks. So yeah, let's talk about that. We'll talk about the boy and the boy's party. It's very cool having a child. I earnestly feel like I'm a different person now, and I know that that's such a trope and such a cliche. Like people say, having kids is going to change you in ways of whatever. I was very tired of people telling me this throughout my wife's first pregnancy with the boy. I got so tired of people coming up to me and telling me all the ways in which my life was going to change and how not prepared I was. And it's just okay, I understand that I'm not prepared. So if you're telling me that I'm not prepared and you're telling me there's nothing I can do until I actually experience it that's going to prepare me for, what's going to happen to me and what's going to happen to my lifestyle and all of this shit, then why? What's the point in you telling me all this? And it seemed like a lot of it was just other parents trying to flex on me a little bit, but maybe they weren't. Maybe they just were eager to talk about their own experience with parenthood. That's probably what it is. In the interest of trying to assume the best in people's intentions, I'm going to say that's what it was. That's something that I really want to impart upon my son, and any children that we have. My wife asked me this recently, what values do we want to give our children? And a really important one for me, at least, is not letting him care too much about what other people think, I guess. And not in the sense that he should be able to do whatever he wants and not be scared of judgment. That's an important one, of course. But also you see people getting so mad about things and just feeling such a degree of moral righteousness and certainty about things. We're seeing it right now, right? We've got the the, Israel-Palestine situation kicking up again like it does every 5 years. And there are people on like both sides of the fence who are basically saying like, if you don't agree with me, you are a terrible person. Like there are memes that are saying that the Jews are Nazis. There are memes that are saying that like anyone who's supporting Palestinian liberation is a Nazi. Like it's ridiculous the amount of like moral grandstanding that's happening. And something that I think that a lot of that comes from insecurity, not the actual current events and like people close to it having an immediate reaction, but more like the sort of American who's relatively distanced from this, feeling the need to like do incessant social media posts in which they like wholeheartedly and with complete moral certainty decry like people who aren't, on whatever team they're on as like morally lost. I think that comes from insecurity. And I think that like it's sort of just a larger scale example of how negative like comments sections have gotten on the internet lately. It's like if anyone sees something where someone doesn't agree with like exactly and specifically what the viewer's opinion is, then the viewer is wildly offended by it and needs to have the person either conform to their way of thinking or needs to invalidate them as inhuman and like irredeemable, because that's the only way that they could reconcile the fact that maybe they, the viewer, don't know everything there is to know about something. It's a terrible quality. And I find, myself feeling these impulses, and I know that they're coming from a place of insecurity. I don't want to be so insecure about what I think that I need it to constantly be validated by the world around me. And my solution to that is to be kind of like tight-lipped about my like opinions and to just kind of be open to learning all of the time and not to wear my sort of like heart or whatever on my sleeve like I've tended to do in the past. And the last year has really been like, the last 2 years have been a period of growth for me in this respect. And I don't want my son to need to go through that. I want him to naturally just not be threatened by the opinions and the thoughts and the feelings of others. Because like personally, I don't like the idea that if I were to talk about how I felt earnestly, even right now in this video, like the things that I'm saying right now in this video, what I've said so far about the conflict, right? The fact that I'm even indicating that it couldn't be completely a one-dimensional, one-sided issue that one side is completely right about and everyone else is evil, like that I don't feel comfortable saying on my Instagram page, just because I don't want to deal with the conflict and the judgment of people around me. And it's not because I don't want to deal with it like in and of itself. It's that I know I will react to it by getting anxious and by getting sad, and that I'll feel the need to defend myself. And that's what I don't want to impart with the boy. I'm perfectly happy with him choosing to keep his opinions to himself because he wants to avoid conflict or because he doesn't think he knows enough about something to throw his hat into the ring. That's great. But what I don't want is for him to not want to do so just because he knows he'll be upset when people take him the wrong way. And for me personally, that's like a massive trigger. When I feel like I'm being misinterpreted, misunderstood, maligned in like, the worst case scenario, which is actually an incredibly common scenario now when you try to discuss anything of importance with someone else, it sends me into a complete tailspin. And this has got to do with a lot of stuff from like, my childhood, like most of our triggering things do. So I want to like make sure I don't, I guess, present the boy with the same set of circumstances, or any of my children with the same set of circumstances that will lead to them feeling like they constantly need to defend the fact that they are just a fucking person, fallible, capable of mistakes, trying to learn, trying their best, and also able to and in some cases obligated to state their opinions about things that they earnestly care about. I want criticism to be able to roll off of their backs in a way that I have a hard time letting it roll off of mine. Easier said than done, I'm sure. And I know that there's a point at which, like, you raise the baby and you raise the toddler and you raise the small child, but at some point, what winds up happening, the personality that they wind up developing feeds into itself. And I'm not saying it becomes completely out of the parent's control, but like, autonomy exists, and it probably starts to happen a lot earlier than we think, like intellectual autonomy, I mean. And I understand that, and I don't want to suppress that. And I understand that, like, my son's personality and any of my future children's personalities are going to evolve on their own. But I still want to do whatever I can to provide the most, like, sort of stable environment for them to grow and develop without any sort of negative impulses that are triggered by insecurity. It's my personal, not educated opinion that a lot of the things that people deal with, a lot of the like bad ways in which people act, a lot of the mistakes that people make in judging one another or in being cruel to one another or unkind or however you want to phrase it, or in feeling set upon by the world, I feel like a lot of them come from insecurity. Maybe that's me projecting as well, because I know that I definitely have these issues myself. Obviously, the framework that I'm working with is out of my own psyche. But I think that's probably true for a lot of people, because I don't think that I'm that like special or unique of a person. I think I probably experience a lot of the same impulses as everyone else. So I think that if, as long as we're providing a stable household and as long as we're like doing our best to raise kids who feel safe and who feel comfortable in their skin, that we'll be able to avoid at least like those sort of major potential pitfalls in the future. But maybe we won't. And that's something that we'll have to deal with. And maybe like the landscape of the world will change. I mean, something that I think about a lot is that when we were very young, some of the like fundamental things that we were taught, right, were two wrongs don't make a right. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Those are the two actually like really important ones. And that's just gone right now. Those values do not exist in our society. It's like when people were taught that as kids, they grew out of it, or they grew to a point where they were like, these were just like fucking words and phrases that sound good, but that aren't actually applicable to the real world. And I disagree. I think those are two extremely important things to bear in mind. If you don't have anything nice to say, then you don't need to say anything. That doesn't mean you can't criticize someone. It just means that if you want to criticize someone, you can do it with respect, and you can do it acknowledging that this person is a fallible human who may be making mistakes, just like you are a fallible human who may be making mistakes in criticizing this person. You need to just have like a fucking like unilateral respect for people, right? Two wrongs don't make a right. It just means like, it means two wrongs don't make a right. But like this value is completely gone. I mean, for like years now, people have been very vocally justifying terrible behavior by saying that it's, an inevitable product of a rapacious society. Like I agree. Society puts us in a shitty situation. Our culture puts us in a shitty situation. The fucking like way that our economy runs puts a lot of people in really shitty situations in which they need to make ethically questionable decisions. But that's different from saying I live in a systematically racist place, so now I get to indiscriminately destroy things, or I, hate the patriarchy, therefore I get to be cruel to individual human beings, like because of their gender, whatever it is. That's stupid. That's not the correct way to combat something that you think is bad or unfair, because what you're going to wind up with is that it's a fucking pendulum. It swings in both directions. Eventually, it's going to reach a tipping point where the people that you're being cruel to because you think that they're the historic oppressors have now endured decades of cruelty. And what is the solution? You've already established that the solution is now to be cruel back to make it even. And where does that end? I'm not saying I know what the solution is. That's a topic for another video, and that's something that I'd rather discuss with a human rather than just kind of letting my fucking brain go where it wants to go, because I don't think I have the answers, again. But what I do know is that two wrongs don't make a right. Anyway, my point is that because these like fundamental values have completely lost any actual meaning in the way that people conduct themselves socially these days, by and large, at least, and from what I'm seeing, both on social media and, in real life. And I know a lot of people say, well, social media isn't real life, but it is real people who make up all of this social media sphere, and social media has replaced a huge portion of people's social lives. So I would argue that it is, to a degree, real life. My point is, who knows if we're even going to be teaching our kids that two wrongs don't make a right. Like, maybe in the future, it's just going to be common knowledge that if something is bad, you gotta be bad back. Because that's certainly how people are fucking acting. It's not how I want my son to act. And it's not how I want any of my children to feel that they need to act in order to exist or hold their own place in the world. And I guess I'm fearful of a future in which that puts them at an inherent disadvantage because everyone around them is just fucking like playing this Machiavellian game of making sure that they come out on top all the time. It's like a giant prisoner's dilemma with the world. You can either conduct yourself ethically and in a way that you think is morally sound and lose, all the time, and like at least know that you're being true to yourself. Or you can go down in the dirt with everyone else, only look out for yourself, compromise your morals and ethics, and maybe have a better outcome. I don't want to live in that world, and I hope the world's not, really like that. And I hope that the trends of discourse and complete fucking intolerance that people have for opinions other than their own, I hope that stops soon. Great example, and then I'm going to sign off because I need to go eat something. I'm a little cranky right now. On my other channel, I made a video about J.K. Rowling's latest book. She has like a pen name and she writes a mystery series. And in her latest one, there's a lot of commentary about, like, you can sort of read between the lines and see how J.K. Rowling feels about a lot of things, a lot of political things, like the concept of like a toxic fandom, a lot of different things. And I made a video about this specifically, what I got from reading this book, reading between the lines in this book, what I think it has to say about what J.K. Rowling like thinks about her current sort of pariah social situation as she views it. And the ultimate thesis that I came up with is that J.K. Rowling doesn't really stand for anything and doesn't really believe in much other than the fact that she thinks that she is a victim in any given circumstance. And so I believe that she's like pretty disingenuous and doesn't really have a moral leg to stand on in many cases. I didn't touch upon the trans issue because, frankly, like, I'm not going to tell a woman who has been like a feminist for as long as she's been in the public eye that her way of standing up for women's rights is wrong and that she needs to believe in feminism in the way that like other people are telling her she needs to. That's fucking stupid. That's stupid. She's allowed to believe whatever she wants. And I would fucking like bet money on an older woman knowing more about the struggles of being a woman and what place feminism should have and what is and isn't feminism than I would, me personally. So I didn't touch upon it in the video. And the comments that I received were all like from people who also don't like J.K. Rowling, but they were mad at me because I didn't not like her for the same reasons that they didn't like her. It's not enough that I don't like her because I think that she's disingenuous and that she doesn't actually have any consistent morals or stand for any actual consistent ideas other than, as I mentioned, her long-standing feminism in the way that she views feminism. People were very mad at me because I didn't not like her because she's transphobic. They told me I was a transphobe and that I should know better than to make a video like this because I should hate her for why they hate her, and I'm not allowed to hate her for hate. I'm not allowed to not like her for why I don't like her. So stupid. Like, how fucking insecure do you need to be in your opinions and your worldview that someone agreeing with you, but agreeing for different reasons, sets you off to such a degree that you need to fucking, like, write long comments on it to try to convince them that they're fucking wrong and shouldn't have made the video? Pathetic, disgusting fucking behavior that makes me very mad. And this is what I don't want my son to get. I don't want him to get this mad when this happens. I want him to be able to say, you know what? Just a fucking person. People make mistakes and they're infallible, and I make mistakes. And have I been saying infallible this whole time? They're fallible. I make mistakes and I am fallible. That's what I want him to think. Thank you for watching this morning. See you tomorrow.